Hello everybody. Next up we play host to Ipswich Town at the Olympic Stadium. Kick-off on Saturday is at the correct and proper time of 3 p.m. There's no engineering works to speak of, but bear in mind Stratford's likely to be a bit busier than usual, given that the away support will also be using the station. So, Ipswich then. Bit of a surprise arrival on these shores, having been in the third tier this time 2 years ago. Since then, back-to-back promotions have seen them return to the top flight for the first time in 22 years. Last season was a bit of an odd season for them in a way. They spent most of the season in second place, then things got interesting as the top four all suddenly had spells where they seemingly didn't want to get promoted. Over a 6-match spell, Ipswich occupied all of the top 4 positions at one stage or another, eventually returning to second place with 2 games to go, a pair of wins seeing them finish 6 points clear of playoff bottlers' Leeds. This season they've yet to win. Defeats at home to Liverpool 2-0 and at Manchester City 4-1 were followed by 4 draws in a row, at home to Fulham and Villa 1-1 and 2-2 respectively, and away at Brighton and Southampton 0-0 and 1-1 respectively. This has left them in 15th position with 4 points from the 5 played so far. That's 1 point and 1 place behind us. As we've remarked in these columns on numerous occasions in the past, the newly promoted usually do one of 2 things. Either they try and make do, and if they go down at least they know they have their parachute payments, or they can make wholesale changes in the hope that they can establish themselves as a top flight side. It would appear that they've brought in a load of players, though the amount spent won't have caused their bank manager any sleepless nights, though Daisy is slightly miffed at all the work that she's had to do this week. They brought in a couple of ex-Hammers. Ben Johnson, who showed some good form when he appeared at the end of last season, decided that his first team opportunities weren't going to improve under the new management. He headed up the A12 on a free once his contract had expired. The other familiar face will be that of the planet's unluckiest footballer, Calvin Phillips. Phillips must have thought he had it all when securing a plum move from Leeds to Man City, but he never really caught Guardiola's eye. Well, not for his footballing skills anyway. So he joined us on loan, whereupon his luck took a turn for the even worse. Slip-ups, bent refereeing, and finally injury were the hallmarks of his ill-fated spell with us, and he didn't even make the end of the season. Even if he'd been fit, he wouldn't have been eligible to play for us at Manchester City. Has to be said, he's had a much quieter start to his latest loan spell at Portman Road. They spent £15 million, possibly rising to £20 million depending on who your sources are, to bring Manchester City Academy graduate Liam Delap in for a striking role. Delap is the son of Rory, who was famed for his long throw prowess back in the day. Delap Jr. started out at his dad's old club, Derby, before the City conglomerates moved in. Over his 4 years at the Etihad, he made just the 2 league appearances, spending time out on loan at Stoke, Preston and Hull, before making the move south and east to Portman Road this summer. He's currently their top scorer with 3 goals in 6 matches. The other big striker arrival was that of Sammy Smudich, who, after 1 game this season for Blackburn, moved down to East Anglia for a reported £9 million fee. Smudich was top scorer in the Championship last season and opened his account when Ipswich took a surprise lead on the opening day up at the Etihad. He'd recently won his first cap for Ireland despite apparent interest from the Hungarians on the international front. The other big money went out on Omari Hutchinson, though the £18 million sent to Chelsea for the 20-year-old hardly brought them in a new face, the player having spent last season on loan in Suffolk. Having gained a smattering of caps at under-17 and under-19 level for England, the Red Hill-born winger accepted an invitation from Jamaica to play for the country of his forebears, and he has gained a couple of caps for them, the last of them being back in 2023. Janet Muric was the choice to strengthen the goalkeeping options. He jumped ship from Burnley when they were relegated last season, with Burnley reportedly picking up a fee of £8 million in the process. The Kosovan has started all 5 league games thus far this season. Let's move on, shall we, to the wild and wacky world of association football. And it is to the oxymoron that is Scottish football we move, where it transpires that Inverness Caledonian Thistle of the infamous Super K-League Go Ballistic Celtic are atrocious headline are in a spot of bother. It seems that they need something like £200,000 over the next couple of weeks. Manager Darren Ferguson has agreed to work for free for the time being, which will be a departure from the norm for him. His last conviction saw him fined rather than doing community service. Meanwhile, back south of the border, Forest owner Evangelos Marianikis faces yet another trip to the authorities for acting in an improper manner towards the officials after the 1-0 home defeat to Fulham. Marianikis seems to have not learnt his lesson from last season, which is namely that if you complain about PGMOL, they will make things even worse for you. Don't believe me? Look at how impossible it was for us to get a penalty once we signed Paolo Di Canio, for example. And let's move on to us. It was an odd little match, that one last weekend. I mean, come on, 37 seconds? I know we're slow starters, but that's ridiculous. After that, we had a lot of the ball for the rest of the half without really looking like doing anything interesting in the final third. Their keeper was the busier of the two, but neither was exactly overwhelmed with work. The second half saw Souček weighing in with what he so often does, a goal from some bits and pieces that come his way. Now, I don't get the stick that Souček sometimes gets. Maybe he's not the most gifted of players, but even when things aren't going great for him, he doesn't hide and he just gets on with the job. Clearly loves the club, and the one thing you could never accuse him of would be a lack of effort. And it was nice to hear his name being sung. One thing's for sure, you wouldn't see him sulking his way over to the touchline when substituted. Yes, I'm looking at you, Mr. Paquetá. On the non-footballing side of the day, I did note a number of supporters having their wallets searched on entry to the ground, on pain of being refused. In one case, I saw somebody having his wallet snatched out of his hand as he withdrew it from his pocket. Now, I suspect that such searches are probably just on the right side of legal, although cleverer people than I have expressed doubts on the matter. However, there are ways of going about these things. Snatching items from what we should not forget are paying customers is certainly not on. Me? Well, thankfully I wasn't selected for such scrutiny. Back to the football, and this weekend we have a fully fit squad from which to choose, with the exception of Fulkrug, whose calf problem will now have spanned 2 international breaks, conveniently tripping the threshold for FIFA to start paying us compensation. Alvarez will return from suspension that kept him out of the trip across town last weekend, so we will see the latest version of what the boss considers to be his best starting lineup, something that I suspect he's still trying to work out. So let's go to the prediction. There are not going to be any pushovers. They looked quite decent last weekend in the second half against Villa and well deserved their equaliser. Having said that, failure to win thus far will be weighing heavily on their shoulders. There again, we've yet to open our account at home as well. This should all point to a draw, but for the hell of it, I'm going to err on the side of optimism. So the £2 that remained untouched in my wallet when I escaped examination from the Brentford Jobsworths will instead be placed on a win. I'll go 3-1 to us if it pleases you, Mr. Winston. Enjoy the game.